I found out my father died through a Facebook post. Not even his obituary, just some random comment offering condolences to my half-sister Rosalind. 3 hours of frantic Googling later, I discovered he'd been dead for 2 days, and his funeral was tomorrow morning. My name is Sophia, and my father erased me from his life when I was 12. Now, 20 years later, he'd managed to erase me from his death too. My hands shook as I dialed Ria's number. She picked up on the second ring. "He's dead," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "The great Ira Owens is dead, and they didn't even bother to tell me." "Oh my God, Soph!" Ria's voice softened. "Are you okay?" "I'm fantastic." I laughed, but it came out hollow. "They're having this big fancy funeral at St. Michael's tomorrow. Everyone who's anyone will be there. Everyone except his firstborn daughter." "Those bastards?" Ria paused. "What are you going to do?" I stared at my laptop screen, at the sleek funeral announcement posted by Wellington & Sons Funeral Home. "Beloved husband, father, and pillar of the community," it read. What a joke. What do you think I'm going to do? I'm going to crash my father's funeral. Sophia, don't try to talk me out of this. I closed my laptop with more force than necessary. 20 years of pretending I don't exist. 20 years of watching him play perfect daddy to Rosalind in August, while I got nothing. Not even a birthday card. "I'm not trying to talk you out of it," Ria said. "I'm coming with you." That stopped me short. "What?" "You shouldn't have to face this alone. I'll pick you up at 9. I felt tears prick at my eyes. "Thanks, Ria." After hanging up, I paced my apartment, unable to sit still. My phone buzzed. A text from Theo, my friend who worked as a PI. "Heard about your dad. Need anything?" I typed back quickly. "Info. Everything you can find about his business dealings in the last 20 years. "On it," came the immediate response. "But Soph, what's your endgame here?" I walked to my bedroom window, looking out at the city lights. What was my endgame? The truth was, I didn't know exactly. But I knew I couldn't let them bury him tomorrow with everyone thinking he was some kind of saint. My phone buzzed again. This time it was an email notification. More condolences on the Wellington & Sons website. I scrolled through them, recognizing names from my childhood. Daniel Perry, Dad's business partner, had written a touching tribute about their 30-year friendship. Mary, my father's second wife, had posted something sickeningly sweet about her beloved husband. The rage built inside me as I read each message. Every single one painted a picture of a man I didn't recognize. A loving father, a devoted husband, a generous friend. I grabbed my keys and headed out, needing air. The night was cool, and the streets were quiet. Outside a corner store, I stopped and called the one person who might understand. "Mom? Sophia? It's late, honey. Is everything okay?" "Dad's dead." The words came out in a rush. "They're having the funeral tomorrow, and they didn't tell us." A long silence followed. When Mom spoke again, her voice was tight. "Are you surprised?" "No." I kicked at a pebble on the sidewalk. "I'm going to the funeral." "Sophia, I have to, Mom. I can't let them pretend anymore. I can't let them bury all his lies with him." She sighed. "Just be careful. Your father," she caught herself. "Ira had powerful friends." "I know." I looked up at the stars, barely visible through the city's light pollution. "But I'm not that scared little girl anymore, and I'm done being invisible." When I got home, I pulled out the one photo I had kept of him, taken on my 10th birthday. We were both smiling at the camera, his hand on my shoulder. 2 years later, he walked out on us, married Mary, and started a new perfect family. The smiling man in the photo disappeared, replaced by someone who could look right through me if we passed on the street. I placed the photo face down on my desk and opened my laptop again. Time to do some research of my own. Tomorrow, they'd all be there. Mary, Rosalind, August, Daniel, and all the others who helped maintain my father's carefully constructed facade. Tomorrow, they'd learn that karma doesn't care about perfect reputations or carefully maintained lies. Tomorrow, they'd learn that the daughter they tried to forget hadn't forgotten them. I cracked my knuckles and started typing. The funeral wasn't until 10 a.m. I had all night to prepare. St. Michael's Church loomed before me, its stone facade a monument to old money and older secrets. Rhea squeezed my hand as we watched the mourners file in, all dressed in expensive black, all wearing masks of solemn grief. "There's still time to turn back," she whispered. I straightened my black dress. Simple, elegant, and probably worth less than the shoes on any of these people's feet. "No, there isn't." We slipped in through the side entrance, finding seats near the back. The church was packed, just as I'd expected. My father always did know how to draw a crowd. Then I saw them, my replacement family. Mary sat in the front row, dabbing at her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. Beside her, Rosalind looked like a fashion magazine's version of grief in her designer morning wear. August, my half-brother, stared straight ahead, his jaw clenched. "Jesus," Rhea muttered. "They really do look perfect, don't they?" "Huh, that's the point." I watched as Daniel Perry, looking distinguished in his tailored suit, leaned over to whisper something to Mary. "It's all for show." The organ began to play, and everyone rose. The service started with all the pomp and circumstance money could buy. A string quartet played my father's favorite classical pieces. Important people stood up to share carefully crafted memories of a man they never truly knew. "Ira was more than a business partner," Daniel said from the pulpit, his voice thick with emotion. "He was a brother to me, a man of integrity, of vision." I dug my nails into my palms, fighting the urge to scream. Rhea must have noticed because she grabbed my wrist. "Breathe," she whispered. "Just breathe." The eulogies continued. A senator spoke about my father's contributions to the community. A charity director praised his generosity. Each word was another brick in the wall of lies they'd built around him. Finally, Mary stood up, clutching a piece of paper. "Before I share my memories of my beloved husband," she began, her voice wavering perfectly, "I'd like to thank you all for coming. Ira would have been so touched to see how many lives he impacted." I stood up. The sound of my chair scraping against the floor echoed through the church. Heads turned. Whispers started. "I have a memory to share," I said, my voice carrying clearly through the sudden silence. Mary froze mid-sentence. Rosalind's perfect composure cracked as she whipped around to stare at me. August looked confused, but Daniel's face went white. I walked down the aisle, feeling hundreds of eyes on me. The whispers grew louder. Some of the older attendees recognized me. I could tell by their sharp intakes of breath. "Who is that?" I heard someone whisper. "Is that? Oh my God, that's his daughter. The first one." I reached the front of the church and turned to face the congregation. Mary had backed away from the pulpit, her hand pressed to her throat. "My name is Sophia," I announced. "Though I doubt many of you remember me. I'm Ira's daughter, his first daughter, the one he erased from his life 20 years ago." The whispers turned to murmurs. Rosalind stood up, her face flushed. "This is inappropriate." "Inappropriate?" I laughed. "You know what's inappropriate? Not telling your father's child that he died. Not including her in his obituary. Pretending she doesn't exist for 20 years. "Security," Mary called out weakly. "Please, don't bother." I pulled out my phone. "I have something you all need to hear. Something about the man you're all here to celebrate." Daniel stepped forward, his face urgent. "Sophia, please." "What's wrong, Daniel? Worried about what I might say?" I met his eyes and he flinched. "Worried about what I might know?" The murmurs grew louder. I could see uncertainty spreading through the crowd like ripples in a pond. August was staring at me with a mixture of shock and curiosity. Rosalind looked like she might be sick. "This is my father's funeral," Mary said, finding her voice. "How dare you? How dare I?" I turned to face her. "How dare you pretend to be the grieving widow when you helped him abandon his first family? How dare you act like he was some kind of saint when you know exactly what kind of man he really was?" A security guard appeared at the side door. I knew my time was running out, but I'd accomplished what I came for. The cracks were showing in their perfect facade. "I'll go," I said, holding up my hands. "But this isn't over. The truth about Ira is going to come out piece by piece, and none of you can stop it." As I walked back down the aisle, head held high, I caught a glimpse of myself in one of the church's stained glass windows. I looked different than the scared little girl in that birthday photo. I looked strong, determined. Outside, Rhea was waiting by the car, her face worried. "Did you do what you needed to do?" I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in years. "No, but I've started." The morning after the funeral, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Local news outlets wanted statements. Old family friends suddenly remembered I existed. But the message that caught my attention came from Theo. "Found something. Meet me at Carlo's Coffee, now." I arrived to find Theo already seated in a corner booth, his laptop open and a stack of papers beside him. His tie was loose, and he looked like he hadn't slept. "You look terrible," I said, sliding into the seat across from him. "You should see what I found." He pushed a manila folder toward me. "Your father's company? It's built on sand." I opened the folder and started reading. Numbers swam before my eyes. Bank transfers, shell companies, suspicious investments. What am I looking at? 20 years of creative accounting. Theo leaned forward. "And that's just the start. Your father and Daniel were running a sophisticated Ponzi scheme. They were, well, isn't this cozy?" We both looked up. Daniel stood there, coffee in hand, trying to look casual but failing miserably. His eyes darted to the papers spread across our table. "Mind if I join you?" Without waiting for an answer, he sat down next to me, forcing me to scoot over. "Actually, we do mind," I said, but he ignored me. "That was quite a show you put on yesterday," he said, stirring his coffee. "Mary's beside herself. Rosalind had to take anxiety medication. Is that what you wanted?" "What I want is the truth," I said. "And looking at these papers, it seems like you might be able to help with that." Daniel's stirring stopped. "I don't know what you think you've found." "Wire transfers to offshore accounts?" Theo interrupted. "Shell companies in the Caymans? Should I go on?" The color drained from Daniel's face. "Who exactly are you?" "Someone who's very good at finding things people try to hide," Theo replied with a smile. Daniel's friendly facade cracked. "Listen to me very carefully," he said, his voice low. "You're playing with fire. Your father." "My father is dead," I cut in. "He can't protect you anymore." A muscle twitched in Daniel's jaw. "You have no idea what you're doing. There are people involved, powerful people. Walk away now while you still can." "Or what?" I leaned closer. "You'll erase me too?" "Sorry, Daniel, but that's already been done. I have nothing left to lose." He stood up abruptly, his coffee forgotten. "This is your last warning, Sophia. For your own good, let it go." After he left, Theo whistled low. "Well, that was dramatic." "He's scared," I said, watching Daniel's retreating back through the window. "Good." My phone buzzed again, a text from an unknown number. It was August. "Can we meet, alone?" I showed the message to Theo. "Think it's a trap? Only one way to find out." He started gathering the papers. "But maybe meet somewhere public, and let me run a background check first." 2 hours later, I sat in a busy park, watching August approach. He looked different outside the church, younger, less polished. He sat down beside me on the bench, keeping his distance. "I didn't know about you," he said without preamble. "Not really. Dad mentioned once that he had another family, but—" He trailed off, looking lost. "But it was easier not to ask questions?" He nodded, looking ashamed. "After yesterday, I started digging. Found old photos, news articles about Dad's first marriage, about you. And I think—" He took a deep breath. "I think maybe everything I knew about my father was a lie." A jogger passed by. Children laughed on the playground nearby. Normal life continuing while August's world unraveled, just like mine had 20 years ago. This morning, he continued, I overheard Mom and Daniel arguing. They were talking about accounts that needed to be moved, about people who needed to be handled. They didn't know I was listening, but now you're scared. I finished for him. He nodded again. What do you know about Dad's business? Enough to bring it all down. I studied his face, looking for any sign of deception. The question is, whose side are you on? August was quiet for a long moment, watching the children on the playground. I always wondered why Rosalind was Dad's favorite, he said finally. Why she was getting the company, even though I'm the one with the business degree. Now I'm wondering if maybe she knows things too. Help me, I said. Help me expose the truth. All of it. He turned to look at me, and for the first time, I saw something of myself in his face. That same determination, that same need for truth. Okay, he said, but we have to be careful. Daniel, he's not just Dad's partner, he's dangerous. I thought about the papers Theo had found, about Daniel's threats in the coffee shop. I'm counting on it, I said. The bigger they are, the harder they fall. Mary's house was exactly as I remembered it from the society page photos, a sprawling mansion that screamed old money and careful cultivation. I sat in my car across the street, watching the security guard make his rounds. My phone buzzed. August. Gate code is 4891. Mom's in her study. Rosalind's out. I took a deep breath and got out of the car. The gate opened smoothly, with August's code, and I walked up the manicured path like I belonged there. The front door was unlocked. Inside, the house smelled of lilies and lemon polish. Family photos lined the walls, perfect moments captured in expensive frames. I wasn't in any of them. Who let you in? Mary's voice cut through the silence. She stood at the top of the stairs, gripping the banister. Hello, Mary. We need to talk. I have nothing to say to you. Her perfectly manicured hand trembled. Get out before I call the police. Call them, I said, climbing the stairs. I'm sure they'd be very interested in what I have to say about your husband's business practices. That stopped her. You're bluffing. I reached the top of the stairs and pulled out my phone, showing her photos of the documents Theo had found. Want to bet your comfortable life on that? Her face went pale. My study, now. The study was all dark wood and leather, reeking of power and privilege. Mary closed the door behind us and poured herself a drink with shaking hands. What do you want? The truth. I sat in one of the leather chairs. Let's start with why you helped my father abandon his first family. I didn't. She stopped when I held up my phone again. Fine. Your father was complicated. Try again. Mary downed her drink. He was in trouble, financial trouble, the kind that doesn't go away. I had family money, connections. He needed both. So you helped him fake bankruptcy, hide his assets, leave his first wife and daughter with nothing? I loved him, she whispered, and he promised things would be different with me, with our children. And were they? The door creaked open. Rosalind stood there, her face a mask of fury. What is she doing here? Asking the questions you should have asked years ago, I said. Like why Dad was grooming you to take over the company instead of August. Because I earned it, Rosalind snapped. Because you were willing to look the other way, I corrected. Weren't you? Mary set down her glass hard. That's enough. No, it's not. I stood up. Daniel's been moving money around, covering tracks, but he can't hide everything. Do you even know what your husband was involved in? Stop it, Rosalind said, but her voice wavered. The FBI is already investigating, I lied, watching their reactions. Mary's hand flew to her throat. Rosalind swayed slightly. Bingo. You're lying, Mary said, but the fear in her eyes told me everything. Am I? Ask Daniel about Project Sunrise. Ask him about the offshore accounts. Ask him why he's been calling in favors all week. Rosalind grabbed the doorframe for support. Mom? Get out, Mary whispered. Get out of my house. I walked to the door but turned back. You know what's funny? Dad could have had it all. Legally, ethically. He was brilliant enough. But he chose this instead. And now, you're all going down with him. In the hallway, I heard raised voices from the study. Accusations. Questions. The first cracks in their perfect world widening into chasms. August was waiting by my car. That bad? Worse. I showed him the recording app on my phone. But we got what we needed. They'll try to stop you, he said. Daniel has connections in the media, in the police. That's why we're not going to the media or the police. I smiled. Not yet. First, we're going to talk to the investors. The ones who trusted Dad with their life savings. They'll never believe you. They will when they see the proof, when they realize their money is gone. I got into my car. Want to come with me? He hesitated, looking back at the house. Through the study window, we could see Mary and Rosalind arguing, their shadows sharp against the curtains. They're not bad people, he said quietly. They're just lost. I know. I started the engine. That's why we're doing this. Sometimes you have to break something completely before you can rebuild it right. August got in the passenger seat. As we drove away, I caught a glimpse of Daniel's car turning into the driveway. Too late. The truth was already spreading, and no amount of damage control could stop it now. Where are we going? August asked. To see someone who's been waiting 20 years for answers. I turned onto the highway. It's time to visit my mom. Mom's apartment hadn't changed in 20 years. Same faded curtains, same worn furniture, same smell of coffee and lavender. August stood awkwardly by the door while Mom studied him from her armchair. You look like him, she finally said. Same eyes. I'm sorry, August blurted out. About everything. Mom waved away his apology. You were a child. Sit down, both of you. I made coffee. As we settled onto the couch, Theo burst through the door without knocking. His tie was completely gone now, and his hair stood on end. You need to see this, he said, opening his laptop on the coffee table. Daniel's been busy. We crowded around the screen. Bank statements, transfer records, emails, all dated within the last 48 hours. He's liquidating everything, Theo explained. Moving assets offshore. But he's getting sloppy. Look at this. He pulled up an email chain. My mother leaned forward, adjusting her reading glasses. Project Sunrise, she read. I remember that name. Your father mentioned it the week before he left us. It was their biggest scam, August said quietly. They promised investors triple returns through some revolutionary green energy technology. Except the technology didn't exist. Mom's hands started shaking. How much? Hundreds of millions, Theo said. And that's just what we can trace. My phone rang, Rosalind's number. I put it on speaker. Daniel's gone, she said without preamble. Her voice was thick with tears. He cleaned out the company accounts, all of them. Mom's having a breakdown. Where are you? I asked. Home. Please. I know I don't deserve your help, but... We're coming, I said, already standing. Don't talk to anyone else. Mom grabbed my arm. Be careful. Men like Daniel don't just disappear. They plan. I know. I hugged her tight. That's counting on it. 20 minutes later, we pulled up to the mansion. The security guard was gone. The front door stood open. Inside, we found Rosalind in the kitchen, surrounded by scattered papers. Mary sat at the counter, staring blankly at a half-empty wine bottle. He took everything, Rosalind said, looking up at us with red eyes. The investments, the pension funds, even Mom's personal accounts. It's all gone. Not everything, Theo said, setting up his laptop. He left a trail, and I think I know where he's heading. How? Mary asked, her first word since we arrived. Because I found this. Theo turned the screen toward us. A private flight booked for tomorrow morning, to a country with no extradition treaty. We have to stop him, August said. No, I replied. We have to let him run. Everyone stared at me. Think about it, I continued. If he runs, he proves his guilt. No one can deny the truth anymore, And once he's gone, the insurance policies kick in, Rosalind finished, realization dawning. The investor protection clauses. Exactly, I pulled out my phone. But first, we need to make sure he actually runs. Rosalind, call him. Tell him you know everything, and you're going to the FBI. She hesitated, then dialed. The call went to voicemail. Daniel, she said, her voice breaking perfectly. How could you? The FBI is coming. They know everything about Project Sunrise. About Dad. About all of it. She hung up. Now we wait, Theo said, typing rapidly. I've got alerts set up on his accounts, his passport. My phone buzzed. A text from Daniel himself. You won! Happy now? I showed it to the others. No, Daniel, I said aloud. But I'm getting there. We spent the next few hours going through papers, piecing together the full scope of my father's and Daniel's deceptions. Mary eventually broke her silence, filling in gaps, explaining connections. With each revelation, the perfect facade crumbled further. Around midnight, Theo's laptop pinged. Got him. He just checked in for his flight. Send everything to the FBI, I said. All of it. What about us? Mary asked quietly. What happens to us? I looked at her, at Rosalind, at August, at the broken remains of my father's second perfect family. You start over, I said. The right way this time. Together? August asked. Maybe. I stood up, gathering my things. But first, we have to face what's coming, all of us. As I drove home that night, I thought about the birthday photo of me and Dad, about the little girl who used to believe in him completely. She was gone, just like his perfect facade, just like Daniel into the night. But something new was emerging from the ashes. Something real. Something true. My phone buzzed. A group text from August to me and Rosalind. Family meeting tomorrow? I smiled and typed back one word. Yes. The conference room at Theo's office buzzed with tension. Investors filled every chair, their faces a mix of anger and fear. At the front of the room, a projector displayed the evidence we'd gathered. 2 decades of fraud laid bare in spreadsheets and emails. My entire retirement fund, a man in the front row said, his voice breaking. Everything we had. It's not all gone, I assured him. That's why we called you here. There's a way forward, but we need your help. Rosalind stood up, smoothing her skirt with trembling hands. What my sister says is true. As the legal heir to the company, I'm prepared to sign over everything. All assets, all holdings. To what end? Someone called out. Daniel's gone. The money's gone. Not all of it, Theo said, clicking to the next slide. We've traced about 40% of the funds. With the insurance policies and the company's remaining legitimate assets, we can recover close to 60% of your investments. A murmur ran through the room. August stepped forward. But we need you to do something first, he said. We need you to go public. All of you, tell your stories. Show the world what our father and Daniel did. The door opened, and Mary walked in, looking smaller without her usual polish. I'll start, she said. I knew. Not everything, but enough. I kept quiet to protect my children, my lifestyle. I was wrong. The room fell silent. Mrs. Owens, one of the investors said, do you understand what you're admitting to? I do. She straightened her shoulders. And I'm prepared to face the consequences. My phone buzzed. A message from Rhea. Turn on the news. Now. I grabbed the remote and switched on the wall-mounted TV. Daniel's face filled the screen, his private jet grounded on a runway in Dubai. The headline scrolled beneath. International manhunt. Business mogul caught in massive fraud scheme. They got him, August whispered. The investors erupted in questions and exclamations. I raised my hands for quiet. This is just the beginning, I said. The FBI will want statements from all of you. It won't be easy. The media will be relentless. But if we stand together, why should we trust you? A woman interrupted. You're his daughter. Because I'm the daughter he abandoned, I replied. The one he tried to erase. And because I'm not asking you to trust me, I'm asking you to fight back. Rosalind pulled out a stack of papers. These are the documents surrendering my inheritance rights. I'm signing them now, in front of you all. As she signed, Mary stepped forward again. My personal assets will also be liquidated to help cover the losses. It won't be much, but it's a start, the first investor said. Others nodded. The meeting lasted hours. People shared stories of how they'd trusted my father, how Daniel had charmed them with promises of impossible returns. Each story made the truth clearer. This wasn't just about money. It was about betrayal, about broken trust. As the last investor left, Theo got another alert on his laptop. FBI's here. They want to talk to all of us. Good, I said. Let's give them everything. Sophia, Mary called as I headed for the door. What you're doing? Thank you. I turned to face her. I'm not doing it for you. I know. She twisted her wedding ring. But you're saving my children anyway, saving all of us from living a lie. Before I could respond, 2 FBI agents entered the room. They looked exactly like you'd expect. Dark suits, serious faces. Ms. Owens? One asked, looking between me and Rosalind. That's both of us, I said. Where do you want to start? From the beginning, the agent replied, pulling out a recorder. Tell us everything. As we sat down to give our statements, I caught August's eye. He nodded slightly, a silent acknowledgement of how far we'd come. Rosalind was already talking, her voice steady as she detailed years of deception. My phone buzzed one last time, a message from Mom. Proud of you, baby. Give them hell. I took a deep breath and faced the agents. It started 20 years ago, I began, with a man who cared more about appearances than truth. The story poured out, not just mine, but all of ours. A story of greed and betrayal, of families broken and rebuilt, of truth finally breaking free from carefully constructed lies. Outside the conference room windows, the sun was setting on my father's empire. But something new was rising in its place. Something built on honesty, on accountability, on real connections. Ready? The agent asked, pen poised. Ready, I replied. And I was. The courthouse steps were packed with reporters. 3 months had passed since Daniel's arrest, and today was the day everything would change. I adjusted my blazer and gripped Ria's hand as we pushed through the crowd. Ms. Owens, is it true Daniel Perry has agreed to testify? What about the missing millions? Any comment on your father's role in the fraud? Inside, the marble halls echoed with whispers and footsteps. We found August and Rosalind waiting by the courtroom doors, both looking like they hadn't slept. Daniel's already inside, August said quietly. He looks broken. Good, I replied, but my voice lacked the venom I'd expected. The bailiff called us in. The courtroom was packed. Investors, reporters, curious onlookers. Mary sat in the front row, her designer clothes replaced by something simpler, more honest. Daniel stood as we entered, his expensive suit replaced by prison orange. Our eyes met briefly before he looked away. He seemed smaller somehow, diminished. All rise, the bailiff announced. As the judge entered, I felt a shift in the air. This was it, the moment of truth. Before we proceed with sentencing, the judge began, Mr. Perry has requested to make a statement. Daniel shuffled to the podium. His hands shook as he unfolded a piece of paper. I've spent my life building walls of lies, he said, his voice rough. Ira and I, we started small. Just a few shortcuts, a few hidden accounts. But lies are like cancer. They spread. Before we knew it, we were trapped in our own deceptions. He looked up, directly at me. Sophia was the first victim. Ira couldn't face her innocence, her truth. So we erased her, just like we erased everyone who threatened to expose us. The courtroom was silent now, hanging on every word. The money's gone, he continued. Most of it lost in bad investments we covered up with more fraud. But I've provided the FBI with everything. Every account, every transaction, every name, including names of people in this room who helped us. A murmur ran through the crowd. Several well-dressed men slipped out the back door. Your Honor, Daniel's lawyer stood. My client's cooperation should be considered in his sentencing. Sit down, the judge ordered. She turned to Daniel. Continue. There's nothing left to say except, I'm sorry. To everyone we hurt. To the families we destroyed. To Sophia, who had the courage to expose what we all wanted to hide. He sat down heavily. The judge shuffled her papers. Mr. Perry, your cooperation is noted. However, the severity of your crimes. She paused, looking over her glasses. 25 years, no possibility of parole? The gavel cracked like thunder. As the bailiff led Daniel away, he stopped briefly beside me. Your father would be proud, he whispered. Not of what you exposed, of how strong you became. I watched him disappear through the side door, remembering the powerful man who'd threatened me in the coffee shop. Karma had finally caught up. Outside, the reporters swarmed again, but this time I was ready. Yes, I'll make a statement, I announced. Today isn't about revenge. It's about truth, about facing our mistakes and trying to make them right. Rosalind stepped up beside me. The company is being restructured. All recovered assets will go to the victims of the fraud. My brother and I are starting over, the right way. And Mary Owens, someone called out. Is cooperating fully with authorities, August answered, and working to make amends. Later, at a small cafe away from the chaos, our unlikely family gathered. Mom had joined us, sitting between me and Rosalind, like it was the most natural thing in the world. What now? August asked, stirring his coffee. Now we rebuild, I said. Not just the company, everything. Together? Rosalind asked hesitantly. Mom reached across the table and took her hand. Together. My phone buzzed. A text from Theo. Found something in your dad's old files. Come by when you can. You need to see this. Everything okay? Ria asked, noticing my expression. I looked around the table, at my mother's strength, at August's determination, at Rosalind's growing honesty, at the family we were building from the ashes of my father's lies. Yeah, I said, putting my phone away. Everything's exactly as it should be. The afternoon sun streamed through the cafe windows, casting long shadows. But for the first time in 20 years, I wasn't afraid of what those shadows might hide. The truth was out, justice was served, and tomorrow was a new day. Sometimes you have to tear everything down to build something real, something true, something that lasts. Theo's office was dark except for his desk lamp when I arrived. He sat staring at an old leather journal, his expression unreadable. Found this in a safety deposit box, he said as I sat down. Your father's personal diary. The key was hidden in Daniel's files. My hands trembled as I took the journal. The leather was soft, worn from years of use. Inside, my father's familiar handwriting filled page after page. Read the last entry, Theo said quietly. I flipped to the final page, dated just days before his death. Sophia was right all along. The truth always finds its way out. Daniel's getting sloppy, desperate. The house of cards is falling. Maybe it's better this way. My daughter, my first daughter, she's stronger than I ever was. She'll find this eventually. She'll understand why I kept her away from all of this. It wasn't to protect myself. It was to protect her from becoming like me. There's more, Theo said, sliding an envelope across the desk. This was with it. Inside was a bank statement and a letter. A separate account, untouched for 20 years, in my name. The balance made my head spin. He set this up the day he left, Theo explained. Never touched it. Never told anyone about it. My phone rang. Rosalind. You need to come to the house, she said without preamble. We found something in Dad's study. 20 minutes later, I stood in the study with Rosalind, August, and Mary. The wall safe stood open, revealing stacks of documents. Look at these, August said, spreading papers across the desk. Dad was documenting everything, every fraud, every lie, but also every legitimate deal, every real investment. He was building a roadmap, Rosalind realized. showing us how to fix it all. Mary picked up a photo from the safe. Me at 12, just before he left. On the back, in his handwriting, the price of my sins. Ah, he never hung any photos of you, Mary said softly. But he kept this, in the safe with everything that mattered. My phone buzzed again. Mom. Come home. Bring them all. We found Mom in her small kitchen, the table set for 6. The smell of her lasagna, the one she used to make for special occasions, filled the apartment. Sit, she commanded. All of you. As we ate, the walls between us crumbled further. Mary shared stories of my father's sleepless nights. August talked about catching him crying in his study. Rosalind admitted she'd found the photo of me years ago, but had been too scared to ask about it. He was a complicated man, Mom said, refilling wine glasses. Deeply flawed. But maybe, in his own broken way, he tried to protect the things he loved. Even if he did it all wrong. What do we do with all this? August asked. The journal, the documents, the account? We do what he couldn't, I said. We make it right. Not just the money, everything. The company, Rosalind added. We could rebuild it, legitimately this time. Together, August said. It wasn't a question anymore. Later, as everyone was leaving, Mary stopped me. I found this too, she said, handing me a small box. Inside was my father's wedding ring from his marriage to Mom. He kept it all these years, she said, in his desk drawer. I think he wanted you to have it. I slipped the ring onto my thumb, too big for any other finger. It felt warm, heavy with history and meaning. Thank you, I said, and meant it. After everyone left, I sat with Mom on her old couch, the journal open between us. We read together, filling in the gaps of 20 years, understanding finally blooming in the space between what was and what could be. You did it, baby, Mom said, squeezing my hand. You broke the cycle. I touched the ring on my thumb, thinking of the father I'd lost and the family I'd found, of truth and lies, of endings and beginnings. No, I said. We did it, all of us. Outside, the city hummed with life. Inside, the pieces of our broken family were finally falling into place, not into the perfect picture my father had tried to create, but into something real, something true, something that would last. I opened my father's journal one last time, adding my own entry beneath his final words. The truth didn't destroy us, Dad. It set us free. And for the first time since I'd seen that obituary online, I felt completely, utterly at peace.